hiking with us. While we do love that the parks are accessible, like that's the point, is that anybody can get into nature, it does mean that trailheads are crowded, especially with parking. So this is behind the Instagram. When you see those amazing shots of people alone on a cliff's edge, know that all of that is happening in the background.
However, when you get on the trail, we did have a lot of space, a lot of trail to ourselves, and I feel like everyone that we met on the trail was respectable and gave right-of-ways, and it was an enjoyable hike.
This was almost like straight up. That's why the camera was bouncing so much. It was a real incline, but it was supposed to be a loop. So you go up the incline to get to the top, and then you go down this really easy 2 mile to get down. And nobody was taking that. Everybody was going down the hard part.
And then when you get up here, you know, there are a lot of people at the summit, but eventually it'll clear out and you will get these 360 panoramic views that you're about to see. Besides the view, the summit also had a unique feature.
Introducing Peak Finder, my idea for an app.
You just point it, Stony Man, and Stony Man.
Wow, you were up there yesterday, Mel.
Oh yeah, say hey.
Hey.
Let's find Orag. It's not on here. Sorry, we can't find it.
Peak Finder app still in beta.
If you are not a hiker, Shenandoah might be your park. So we hiked like 1.5 miles up to get this view. But the beauty of the park and Skyline Drive is that you literally drive a ridge across the mountain. So this is an overlook that you can park your car and get out and take this picture.
And there were like 75 of these overlooks on a 100-mile drive, so they're plentiful.
When early Dutch trappers first saw these domestic cat-sized animals, they assumed these were different types of the fitches or polecats from back home.
That was an excerpt from Guide Along, which is a guided audio tour that you can listen to while you drive the 100 miles of Skyline Drive. And this is our picnic. Of course, you know we had one. This is at one of those 75 overlooks he talked about.
Yeah, I wasn't jazzed by any of the picnic areas, so I was like, let's bring our chairs.
This is Big Meadow Visitor Center, or if you're looking on Google Maps, it's the Harry F. Bird Visitor Center. Yes, we had arguments about this.
They had an awesome store with lots of dark sky postcards and posters and shirts, and we'd be wearing them.
Shenandoah was, before it was a national park, was Skyland Resort, and it was built as a place for people in the east to be able to get into the mountains because they couldn't go to Colorado.
And they built Skyline Drive, right?
Yes, so that it was accessible. They could cruise their cars up to the top of the mountain.
So this part of the visitor center focuses on the different parts of land that were given to or gifted to the National Park Service, and also how Herbert Hoover wanted to build basically a camp kind of predicated Camp David. So there is a small museum about all of that. An interesting part here too is the Lewis Campground, which was a segregated park, but it was really popular with African Americans at the time. So now obviously it's open to everyone, but they had that memorabilia and just stories from the people who actually camped there.
This is supposed to simulate walking through the Appalachian Trail, of which 101 miles are located in the park.
Now to switch gears, Washington is my homie.
And when she says switch gears, she means start talking about the surrenders.
This is the Yorktown battlefield, which is one of the places where the British surrendered to the Americans. Who are we? The revolutionists?
Colonists.
But we went here the same day that we went to Jamestown in the last video, but it was just too many visitor centers in one video. What I liked most about this visitor center was that they had this giant ship that was like supposed to simulate what it was like to be inside of a ship, like what a British soldier would have experienced coming here.
And what I decided was that I wouldn't have been able to sleep in those hammocks. They were too close to the ceiling.
Like, what would happen if it was like really rough seas? Like, wouldn't you just like swing into your neighbor?
I think the hammocks are supposed to be good for rough seas. I don't know the mechanics of that.
The U.S. Navy does not use hammocks, Emily. I don't know. But there is a storage of goods that they would have had. And then we're about to enter like the captain's quarters. It's kind of dark in here. The GoPro doesn't do the best in the dark. But we watched an interesting video about the setup of the battle and what actually happened to the British.
Our second surrender of the video, Appomattox Courthouse. So we went on a ranger-led tour, and that clown man wished he were the ranger.
as you know, we go on a lot of these ranger-led tours, and I don't think we've ever had somebody that was so arrogant and just like interjectory.
Some things we learned: the town is Appomattox Courthouse. This didn't happen at a courthouse, so this is the town.
This wasn't even the end of the war. This was just the first surrender of the South. There wasn't like a peace treaty because the South wasn't its own country.
And this is where it happened, at a private residence of a man named McLean.
So you can go inside McLean's house, and it kind of shows you what a house would look like during the Civil War era. It kind of reminded me of Lincoln's house. I guess it would have been the same time period.
So General Lee and General Grant just meeting in this man's house, coming up with surrender terms.
On the tour, the ranger spent a long time talking about how gracious the terms were. Like, you could keep your horse, you could go home, and they drew up papers. So this was a tavern that they had to turn into a printing press, and they printed everybody orders to go home, basically, so that they wouldn't be like caught and drafted back into the war.
All right, see you next week. We're heading to Ohio.
Come hiking with us. Emily, that fart really stinks.
God damn it, shut the mic.